a one-off special. I'm not going to mention this guy again. I hope not anyway. We're entering the dark winter here in the northern latitudes. I want to hibernate. I don't want to do any hard work, which is talking about Nigel Farage. But he wrote a piece in the Daily Mail yesterday, and the headline was, "We will be the party of hard work and success." And I thought, here we go again. Hard work and success. Oh my goodness me. It's been going on for decades, hasn't it? We're being told that we've got to work harder and harder and harder. And, you know, it's a kind of desperate attempt to become successful, whatever that means, whatever that means. Now, I've talked about this a lot in the past. I've talked about the myth of success. And I've said that, you know, nowadays success is just surviving. It's hard enough just to survive. So I don't know what he means by success. I mean, people have an idea about it. They think it's kind of becoming wealthy and autonomous and that kind of thing. Well, yeah, one or two of you might be able to make that dream come true. But I'm afraid the other 999 behind you, well, they're going to be losers, aren't they? You know, it depends how you define success. But are you a pietist? Are you a puritan? Are you a Calvinist? Are you a Protestant? Because these are the sort of Puritan religious fundamentalists who invented this concept of hard work and invented the concept of success and what it meant. Completely abstract ideas. They don't mean anything in themselves. So if he's going to define himself as the party of hard work, he better start defining exactly what he means. I mean, what is hard work? What's the difference between work and hard work? When I think of hard work, I kind of think about those guys who are imprisoned and they're wrapped in chains and they have to smash rocks for 12 hours a day. I mean, I would consider that to be kind of hard work, you know, or something very physical, you know, like working in mining or something, or maybe. But is that what he wants? He wants us all to be like that, in chains, knocking up rocks, or, you know, of course he doesn't want that. So what does he want? What does he mean by we will be the party of hard work? And what does he count as success? These things are not measurable. You cannot measure success. You cannot measure, there is no universal measurement for success. There's no universal measurement for hard work and distinguish it from normal work. So here he goes again, and we've heard this for years. This is such an old and cliched way of trying to rally a support base. It's purely conceptual. It's giving an idea that there are certain losers in life who are kind of complete wasters who don't do anything, and they're sucking all the money from the economy for their benefits or something like that. But it doesn't make any sense. The point is that Farage is not a Puritan, is he? He's got this Puritan idea about hard work and success. But he's not one. So his politics depends on you becoming a Puritan. Yeah, of course you can smoke, because one of his policies is that he was going to start letting people smoke in pubs again for some reason. Maybe, who knows. But his main policy will be that he will make a virtue out of hard work and success. But AI is taking all the jobs. AI, within 2 years, will have the potential to take away your job. I mean, unless you are a plumber, or unless you are an electrician, or unless you are digging dirt, maybe graves, then your job will go, or your job has the potential to go. Pretty much all white-collar work, which has got anything to do with data, will disappear. So what work are you going to do? Surely just getting work will be enough, let alone the hard bit. He's a man out of time. He's a retrogressive man who is using very old language, the sort of language that Norman Tebbit used, perhaps, 35 years ago in the Conservative Party. It doesn't really make any sense. There is not going to be any hard work for any of us to do, let alone work. And as for success comes down to surviving, doesn't it, really? Surviving, that's a success story, I would say. Coping, That's a success story. Not going mad in an insane world, I would say that that's pretty successful. That's not the success he means, is it? He's using the abstract concept of success to suggest that under his government you will be free. I was going to say free to reap, but it's kind of really free to rape the resources around you, whether they be people or whatever, in order to somehow achieve and get into the 1%. The 1% that seems to have it very easy, don't they? Hard work is just a kind of Protestant idea, isn't it? It's not a universal virtue that is inherent in man since literally the dawn of time. You know, Labour was never really respected. The aristocracy didn't give a damn for Labour. They had people to do Labour for them. The hard work was done traditionally by other people, while the aristocracy sat around, you know, and ate great big chickens. Labour wasn't respected then. It was for slaves. It was for peasants. It was for the lower classes. You know, success was about avoiding work, you know, and spending time on your yacht in the Mediterranean. It's all nonsense. He's using these wily words. Now, I wouldn't care if he just mentioned these offhand, but to say that we are the party of hard work and success is rather a giveaway, really. There's nothing inherently noble about working yourself into the ground. Now, everybody is working themselves into the ground already just to pay the energy bills. Is that success? I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. It wasn't always like this. This is a recent phenomena, and it's getting worse. So this is a religious idea. So the question is, do you want to become a member of the Reformed Church? Do you want to honour God through the performing of endless work, of filling your rucksack with a bunch of stones and going out every morning and working until exhaustion? Is that what you want to do? Now, we don't have a God to honour anymore because not even Farage has gone down the American way, which is to try and bring godliness into society. So who are we honouring when we work really hard? Who are we honouring under Farage's work ethic? Well, we're doing it. We're senseless. We're doing it for senseless reasons, or we're honouring ourselves because it's a selfish act. So it's a sort of narcissistic, selfish act, pushing everybody else out of the way to try and get to the top. We're not going to be God's chosen people, are we? If we express this vision of extremely hard work in order to achieve an abstract success. And what Farage has done is he's taken this old Calvinistic, Protestant, Puritan idea and he's turned it into a kind of cultural value, a British value. But it's complete invention. And it doesn't have to be like that at all. And of course, with AI coming and taking most of our jobs, there isn't going to be any hard work to do. So he's a man out of time. We're not allowed to have a peaceful, decent life now without deserving it. To be born into this world is not enough. To be born, to be of good character, to be diligent, to take your responsibilities seriously, that isn't enough. You could still end up in the gutter easily in this kind of Farage type society, and people will, of course, and people have. You have to deserve a certain standard of living. You cannot expect it as part of the deal of being born into a certain type of society. And if you fail, well, it's your fault. There's no structural reason that you can blame. You can't say, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. I had abusive parents. I was born with a disability. You can't say any of that. It's your fault if you fail, for whatever reason. Not everybody you see is psychopathic enough to manipulate everybody from day zero in order to reach the top of the tree. Some people are kind of sensitive to their life here. They don't necessarily want to buy in to puritanism. So that's their fault that they'll have nothing. I guess you're probably thinking, it sounds fair. It's important that people should be morally strong. But this isn't about how society could be. It's about how society should be. And this is what Farage is interested in. He's interested in what it should look like. Well, if you want to become a Calvinist or a Puritan, then go do it. Join up the sect, all right? But most of us don't want to be involved in that sect. So for us, there are other dreams and ambitions we have for our society. We're not interested in this Protestant work ethic. We don't think it's a duty to God to work ourselves into the ground. So Farage is referring to a sort of moral hierarchy. You've got the good people, the godly people, and you've got the baddies. And he's trying to sort of group together his support base of morally superior people, hard workers. We're all hard workers. Just being alive is hard work. And who's he demonizing? Well, it's the usual people, isn't it? It's people on benefit. It's people who don't buy into his form of Puritanism, and it's immigrants, those kind of people. He doesn't like the fact that there are certain members of society who struggle. He hasn't really had to struggle, has he? As far as I know, he was not born with a major disability. As far as I know, he was not born into poverty. As far as I know, he did not arrive here on a rubber dinghy, utterly traumatized, out of place. As far as I know, he hasn't got a chronic illness, a facial deformity. As far as I know, he wasn't abused. We're not all, you see, born equal. And yet the finish line is fixed for everybody, and unless you get past that finish line, then you're in trouble in this society. And as I said, it wasn't always like this. We had a wonderful little opportunity in the sort of 60s and 70s where you could sort of get through this life kind of at your own pace. Now, of course, that's a cardinal sin, isn't it? Not only is it a cardinal sin, it's impossible to do. You can't find accommodation, you can't pay your energy bills. If you're in a low-paid job, you're finished. People don't choose the circumstances of their birth, or their health, or their education, Farage, I think, had the privilege of going to one of the top schools, or our opportunities, and of course something called luck. Luck is kind of happenstance, isn't it? But actually you can, in a way, be born lucky. You know, if you've gone to one of the top schools like Stowe or Eton or wherever, Haileybury or wherever, Harrow, then you're already from a very early age networked into a very different community. So luck might fall upon you easier than if you come from, you know, the back streets of Peterborough. Most of them have inherited their wealth, a lot of money around. Have a look. They don't have disabilities. They haven't been exploited. The starting points are very different. He makes out there's a level playing field, but there isn't. I don't want to live in a society where for every winner there are 9 losers. I'm not convinced about this hard work and success idea. I think that it's a program for a continuation of a society which isn't working. It's retrogressive, it's old school, it doesn't take on board the reality of work life in the future, and I don't mean the distant future. I mean it's happening now, and particularly over the next 2 years. That's all it will take for your job to either disappear or potentially to disappear. So my friend Paul, who's in his 70s, has managed to get through his whole life without doing a day's work. Actually, I think that about 50 years ago he had an office job for a few years, but by and large, after that, he kind of indulged his own eccentricities. And he was able to do that because, of course, he was living through the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. And he established a way of living in the end that has seen him through life. He had to make sacrifices. He didn't have anything. He's never owned a car. He's never owned an apartment. He lives in a controlled rent studio flat. And he's been in there for 40 years. Doesn't really have any possessions. He's never bought any clothes. But he lives the life that he wants to live. He didn't want to buy into any of this. And because he was born in that time when this was possible, it was possible to have a small home and be able to budget, even on a very low income. So how did he do it? Well, as I said, he had his controlled rent flat. And he used to do a little bit of dealing here and there in sort of silver spoons. I know that sounds weird, but, you know, could make a few quid here and there. And also in record trading. But, you know, he didn't make a real business out of it. It was very kind of casual. But he scraped by. He also spent a lot of time gambling. Horses. And he was quite successful at that. He could, you know, over the course of a year, you know, he could kind of survive on small winnings. He was an eccentric. He was very well known in the community. He knew everybody. He always had time for everybody in the community. And was well liked, if not loved, I would say, in his Dorset town where he lived. He was always happy to help people out if he could. And he just didn't want the troubles of a complicated life. He wanted a simple life. So he didn't get involved in any consumerism. His life was about being able to do his horses, being out and about, hanging out with people, doing a little bit of trading in silver spoons. Thing is that you could never do that now, could you? It would be impossible. What you'd have to do now is you'd have to do what Farage says. You'd have to work yourself into the ground. You'd have to become a puritan. Now, I think this world should also be available to people like Paul. I think people like Paul should be able to exist. He wouldn't have lasted 5 minutes down a mine, I'm sorry. He had an important role to play. He was available to people if they needed to talk to somebody. And he sacrificed those material things. For him, they were no sacrifice, but they would be to me. But for him, they weren't, because what he wanted was freedom. He wanted the freedom. There are no such thing as these controlled rent places now. Energy bills have gone up exponentially. Food costs. You couldn't do it now. And under Farage, none of us are going to be doing anything like that.